Hello everyone, and welcome to my look at LEGO's second Ultimate Collector Series rendition of the Y-Wing Starfighter, from Star Wars of course. This specific model is intended to replicate the look of the craft piloted by Gold Leader from A New Hope, Episode 4. And if that sounds like a little bit of a familiar story, it's because LEGO has recently put out another version of Gold Leader's Y-Wing, just at a much lower price. They did it for the Rogue One movie, which did feature the same craft there. Just did it in kind of their standard minifig compatible scale, which is not properly proportional, but this is a $60 US set here. Came with 4 minifigures. $200 US set here came with 1 minifigure, not including the astromech in either case, and that's over a 3 times difference. And just on first impression, I don't feel like I got 3 times as much stuff here just looking at the two next to each other. And part of that, when you put them close together like this, you can really see the difference in size, but from any reasonable distance, if you're not looking at them side by side, then it becomes a little bit more difficult to really grasp the difference. And I think a lot of that is because of the commonalities between the noses and cockpit sections between these two. I mean, look at that. They use the exact same canopy piece. Obviously, the UCS version extends things behind that quite a bit, but the scale of the ion turret on top is very similar, and just the use of this exact same part that kind of establishes the face, establishes the shape of the eyes of this, if you will. Also gives us an easy frame of reference for size, and makes them look strangely similar in size, at least from a distance. Here's the thing though, most of what you pay for with this Ultimate Collector Series set comes behind the cockpit, and I'll get back to giving you a closer look at the cockpit and the entire nose section, but this is where the focus really needs to be, because this is unprecedented, I believe, from everything that I've seen. This is a level of detail that I think LEGO has not attempted before. You're not just looking at surface detail here, greebling, texture for the sake of texture. There's a little bit of just a kind of a plate surface that's used in this area here with some small details on top, but the core of the fuselage is built up with detail to its very core. There's a lot of depth there, and we really need to look at this from different angles to be able to appreciate that depth, where you're not looking at just small pieces attached to the outside of something. There are deep shadows to be seen down in there, and there's a lot of construction that went into this. This felt like a proper construction project as I was putting this together, to a degree that is beyond what you normally get from building even an advanced LEGO model. Typically, there's so much just density of texture in here, density of small pieces. It's like nothing I've ever come across before. It's completely solid down the middle, but not rectangular. It has different divots in it and parts that stick out, and switching over to studs on the side construction and some angled pieces, some clip-wise construction. There's just so much going on here. It's truly impressive, beyond most LEGO sets that I believe I have ever seen. And it's not just texture for the sake of texture. It's really done to try to replicate the exact in-movie props that were used. So everything that is placed, every single piece that is placed for a specific reason, and trying to replicate a specific feature of one of the movie models. And in the instructions, the designer does explain that it took a little bit of work to even gather the information, because there were multiple models of different sizes used and such, and just being able to see all of the angles of the original things was very important. It's very easy nowadays to use other models, other toys, other scale models, digital renderings and such as reference material, but The designer of this wanted to go by the original only, and truly the original, or in this case, the originals. Now, some of the interesting building techniques and interesting part usage in this set went into relatively large shapes, like what they did back here for the kind of thrust vectoring vanes. I think that's the best that LEGO has done on any of their Y-Wings to date. They've tried many different techniques and different types of pieces, but this is my favorite personally, by far, so far. They do have some kind of unwanted spokes on the large plastic wheel that are visible, but mostly from the sides and from the rear, where you would expect to see these vanes. They look good. They're nice and thin. The shaping is pretty good, and I also like the small details of how the connector pieces kind of move in smoothly into the ring back here. Interesting part usages again with the small crank pieces, the connecting rod crank parts from LEGO Technic engines, the pneumatic T-bar pieces used to connect things just in ways that were unexpected for me, using these small bar-shaped holes back there. But then look really closely at some of the smaller, finer details, the one stud long, one stud wide stuff, and in some cases a little bit less than that with some of the specific shapes that were brought out. I mean, we've got the binocular pieces that are facing up towards you here, got the ice skate piece used here, good use of the flexible whip there, good use of the bases of hinge parts. Oh, you've got one sticking up here. There are a bunch of those throughout this entire build. Ingots in just the regular plain light gray color back there. We've got a number of those, a couple of them here, just giving you a little bit different shaping and texturing. The handles, bucket handles. And again, just with the depth, that's what impresses me most here, is how far down the small details go. You've got the cross pieces like a lightsaber hilt, but has a cross at the end. A couple of those down there. And interestingly, the small details don't just appear on the most camera-friendly angles of this. As you turn it around to the side, and even start to look underneath, there are more little details. Some of them may not have needed to exist, but it's better that they do so that you can appreciate this from more angles before you start to see really just the ugliness of kind of unfinished undersides and large areas of anti-studs. Now, unless you place your model on the top of a bookcase on its stand backwards so that it's angled away from you, you will not be seeing an angle like this. But I did want to show you just how many pieces are applied from the underside. I mean, this is done in multiple sections, so it's not like you have to attach things, upside down here, but this is just the end result. And they do that, or they did that, so that when you are looking at it from more normal angles, where you're not looking at it from directly underneath, but maybe you have it on its stand on a desk, or a surface that's a little bit higher up than normal, you can see detail around the sides. So you don't just see that cutoff between the area that's actually developed and the area that's not. It's a pretty smooth transition. It does have landing skids. You can place this off the stand if you want. So these are able to extend out here. The two little half bits kind of want to move independently, but ultimately the strut will come down. It's just a little shorty there, and then they've got another one on the other side, of course, and they also have the center one here. So let me go ahead and take this off the stand. So there's what you'll be looking at with it on the ground, which looks pretty good, especially relative to the height of a minifigure, although this is definitely not a minifig scaled set. I think it's about twice as large as minifig scales, something roughly in that range. This is just a little bit smaller than the UCS X-Wing in terms of its scale, but fairly compatible if you wanted to pose them side by side. Returning to the cockpit section as promised, this is where most of the stickers in the set end up. So you've got a pair used here right across the nose. Obviously there's one there. There's one there, and then there's also one on top of this long 1x8 tile. And the canopy piece that's shared with the smaller scale Y-Wing has a sticker on either side. So this L shape over here in the sand blue color is a sticker, which I'm okay with in theory, or at least in principle, but I feel like they should have gone farther with that. They established kind of the lower brow line with the upper part of this, but then they didn't divide the window into the two sections. There's a triangular section on the real thing at the front, and then there's the larger window behind that. And they had an opportunity to continue this sticker right down to do something with that, or to even bring in the option of a second sticker that builders could choose to align to have no gap going down the center, kind of like I did here with no gap just by bringing the two together. Could have made this much more realistic, I believe, just continuing that lower brow line all the way forward and then establishing the small front window. So that's a little bit of a miss. To open the canopy, I need to move the ion turret barrels out of the way, but I'm going to do that in a very fancy way. I'm going to just put my finger on this small gear back here, small Technic gear, which is actually geared up so you can remotely operate that. That looks really good. It really makes it feel alive when I do that, but most of the time you're not going to be doing this, and it also has a lot of friction in it, so it's not the most useful of features, not the best use of that part of the parts budget, in my opinion, though it is a nice gee-whiz thing, a very nice gee-whiz thing. But opening the canopy up is able to show us a nicer gee-whiz thing, in my opinion. They got the targeting computer screen there in front of the pilot, which I think is pretty nice, and you can lift that up so you can see him more clearly. And inside the cockpit, they have the nice little flight yoke done with a black colored bucket handle piece, and then there are also 3 more stickers. So one for the console at the front there. Sorry, I was off to the side, but let me take the figure out so you can see the others, which are actually just mirrored. Actually, not even mirrored, they're just the same on the sides, which looks nice enough. And they let you put a minifigure in here, which I think is great. It's close enough in size that works, even though the overall size of the whole ship does not scale to the minifigs. But I'm just fine with all that. I'm okay with that. I prefer to be able to put a minifig in whenever it's possible, regardless of the scale. And with this larger scale, you're able to put the astromech droid in the correct way, shoulders abreast, as opposed to what we normally get for Lego Star Wars Starfighters, where you have to turn the thing sideways, and then if you want to reorient the head to face forward, that's all well and good, but it's nice to be able to pose this in here just the way it's supposed to be, Just finishing up the front section of the ship here. Again, the underside is fairly camera friendly. I mean, this is fully cowled off, so you don't expect to see a lot of small detail there. This is just appropriate. And I think it's good. I think they did a pretty good job here of capturing the shape from many angles. So again, if you have this angled away from you slightly, if you have it a little bit above your head where you want to display it, it'll still look pretty good. And you've got some depth in the nose behind the laser barrels there. I feel like the barrels maybe could have been a little bit thicker, but it's pretty close to what I expect. They also could have angled, I feel, just the rear section of the cockpit, to give it that forward rake just a little bit. It would have required placing all of that on a hinge, a large hinged plate. Could have added a little bit more realism, but to be honest, the most important thing that I think is missed here, again, is just the delineation between the two front side windows. And I'm holding this by 3 fingers right now because I'm not worried about anything falling off. I mentioned that the center, the core build, is very solid. Well, that really contributes to stability through a combination of design and circumstance. A lot of that build had to be done for the sake of support of the small details, but a lot of it was also done for the sake of support and strength. So this is not a model that I expect to see sagging over the course of years. The weakest parts in terms of display sag and just general dilapidation over time are definitely these rods here. They're a little bit flexible by design, and I feel like over time, just with the amount of weight that's back here, even if they didn't have that weight, I mean, it's not that much, but over time those may sag a little bit. But the good thing there is that you can undo that by simply pulling the whole section out, turning it upside down, and plugging it right back in, and gravity will start to correct the problem that it caused. In general, I'm not worried too much about grabbing this and handling it, even though it does have a lot of small details. The vast majority of them are pretty securely attached. There are some things that you don't want to mess with too much, like the landing skids. They're a little bit flimsy just because they're so small, and they will get kind of discombobulated like that. I recommend putting those out only if you're going to have it on display in the air or just perfectly flat on a surface where it's not being messed with. Otherwise, just retract those out of the way and don't worry about them. Other than that, some of the small bars, maybe a little bit. If you're too rough, like right here, if you squeeze in from there, you can pop those out. These little cages back here are able to move in and out, but maybe you can break that off accidentally. It's not even that bad. It's surprisingly strong for how many fine details it has. So it's definitely something that can be handled without too much worry. And because it's not too big, it's not too heavy either. Here's a full underside shot too, just to kind of close things out with a look at the main build. And again, good coverage of most of the surfaces. This is one of the better looking large models from the underside, in my opinion. This pilot minifigure is officially Gold Leader. Unofficially, John Dutch Vander. They just didn't license the name for the character. It would have been an extra cost. But this is supposed to be Dutch himself. He gets a brand new helmet print, which looks pretty good, as they usually do, although from shots that I've seen from the movie up close, just going back to check for reference, there should be a lot more of the green, like a lot more of the green. I think the placements and shaping of the prints are all pretty good. It just needs more of that base color to be added on top. And that's just the olive green color. Flight suits look good, always, in my opinion. Head looks good, except it's generic. It's one that they've used before. I think that Gold Leader deserved his own head, especially for a UCS set. Should have had unique face prints. I mean, the actor, I think, looked unique enough that they could have come up with something special for him. Possibly they could have been reused in the future for something else. But yeah, just to reuse a head like that and to reuse most of everything for such an expensive and kind of high-end set feels like a little bit of a letdown to me personally. This astromech droid, on the other hand, is new and exclusive to this set, and it's very interesting to me. Although I did, once again, have really bad luck with the head printing. It's all wonky and droops off to one side, as most of my astromech heads from LEGO have done, and I'm not alone in getting those, but I seem to have particularly bad luck. But this is R2 BHD. And looking into this droid just was a very enlightening experience for me. I like to collect LEGO's Star Wars droids, especially the astromechs, and every time I get a new one, I look it up and try to learn about it a little bit. This is officially Gold Leader's assigned astromech. It's the one that he had in the ship officially in Rogue One, and from what I can see, I don't think I've seen anybody piece it together. I might not have looked well enough, but I don't think I've seen anybody piece it together fully, but I'm pretty sure that this is intended to be the exact one that was used in the trench run in A New Hope also. One of the Gold Squadron Y-Wings had a gray or silver topped droid in it, R2 unit at that, with the round dome. And I think it was supposed to be his. I think that the circle is being completed there. And of course, the clearest image that we get of the trench run Y-Wings going into their attack shows a couple of them with no droids whatsoever, which was just a mistake. But yeah, this is Gold Leader's R2 unit here, R2 BHD, with a dark bluish gray body and medium silver head and legs, and then the bright silver colored print on there as well to give it a little bit of accenting. And I think that up close this looks a little bit weird with the choice of the silver versus the dark bluish gray. Rather than being consistent about it, I think the actual model would have been consistent all the way across, but from any kind of reasonable distance, this looks like the right decision to me, because it helps the bright silver print on the body to stand out. And I think this is a much better angle here from which to illustrate that. It really shows the contrast on the body. Lastly, the stand is not the greatest of all time, but it definitely does its job. It's got the multi-mode setup, so you can go either straight up and down or angling towards you. It's definitely more comfortable angling towards you, but it definitely gives you a different look when you go straight up and down. I feel like this might be a little bit better for some higher placements. I don't know, it's just entirely up to you. And of course you can go left to right or right to left. You can also do this if you want, and this is kind of an option, but it doesn't really lock very well here, and a little bit of just general vibration over time I think will cause it to fall back. Similarly, if you orient it this way, that works just fine. This not quite so well. Over time it'll want to bring itself back to the angled position. In my opinion, the designer of this set deserves full credit for a job well done. All of this in here must have just taken forever. The strength is really good. The overall proportions are very good. The packaging was nice as well. Everything went together just fine. Nothing was too difficult. There were a lot of small pieces, so you need patience if you want everything to be aligned very well, but nothing was frustrating to me along the way. And again, the two things I wish were better are the pilot figure. I really think he should have had his own unique, or at least new, head print, and the stickering for the front of the canopy here. I'm fine with the overall shape. I just feel like they went halfway with the addition of the sticker to make it a little bit more realistic with the height of the windows there, but then just needed to finish that off with something here, and they just didn't do that. See, it's kind of the B pillar right there, or right there, that's missing. And like I said near the beginning of the video, I feel like this is just not as impressive in size as I would have expected for its price and for a UCS model, especially compared to the also very good but much cheaper Rogue One set. But that's it for my thoughts. If you have any thoughts of your own you'd like to share with myself and or the rest of the viewers, please feel free to leave a comment, and I will be talking to you again soon because my next video is on the way.